This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies.
Put it back for me.
Mom! Get the
Chaos,
money back,
hold on a
alright?
second.
Sorry.
Quick question. Who here has had a panic attack before? And how would you describe what it feels like to somebody who's never had one? For me, I always tell people to watch Good Time, a 2017 film directed by the now famous Safdie Brothers. Strictly speaking, Good Time is more of a trigger for me than a one-to-one representation of a panic attack, but it does the job. For instance, imagine a scene that goes something like this. A young man with his injured brother approaching a family home in the middle of the night to ask for a quick phone call. Apparently, he's lost his home keys and needs to wait for his mother to get off work.
Is there any way I can use your phone just for like 2 minutes?
The homeowner recognizes the man from the AAR bus she was on just minutes ago and lets him in, telling him to wait in a room until he gets his keys. She then briefly talks to her granddaughter and goes to sleep. Simple enough, except this man, whose name is Connie, is not who he claims to be. He's a criminal on the run who has just broken his brother out of a hospital and is trying to stay hidden until somebody can come pick them up. Given the stakes, it is logical to assume that Connie would stay as low profile as he can for the duration of his stay. So he steals a hair bleach from the washroom, takes off his shirt and dyes his hair with the granddaughter still present. Yeah. While raising the risk definitely adds tension for the viewers, Connie's decision makes zero sense. Why would someone who is well aware of his situation and is capable of putting up an act suddenly drop everything and jeopardize his own safety by behaving in this manner? After all, he went through so much trouble to save his brother and now he just doesn't care? This should have taken me out of the film.
I found some hair dye in your bathroom.
But instead, I was in awe. Before getting to the nitty-gritties, it's important to note that the reason why the film feels so anxious in the first place is because Connie, the main protagonist, is basically never anxious. If there was even a pinch of fear or uncertainty, he wouldn't have dyed his hair half naked in someone else's place after asking for help.
What's that in your hair?
But how would the audience know what Connie's thinking? What is the film doing to not only intensify every scene, but also to characterize its on-screen characters to justify their actions? To answer that question, let's jump forward in time a bit.
I don't know who it is. The hospital up. It's not my fault. Does the car in the driveway work?
Yeah.
Do you know where the keys are?
No.
Well, where could they be? Can we just go and look for them quickly?
Man.
Don't be confused. It's just gonna make it worse for me.
This seems like a pretty standard interaction, but what you didn't see here is Connie finding out minutes ago that A, this man is not his brother, B, his real brother is still in the hospital he just escaped from, and therefore C, he needs to steal their car. It's a fucking nightmare. So in this scene, Connie is telling Crystal, the granddaughter, to go find the keys.
That's not my brother. The hospital f***ed up.
Who's that upstairs?
Now, what you need to pay attention to is how the scene is shot. There are two shot types being used in this scene, close-up and objective. Of course, this one is closer to a medium close-up and this one is probably somewhere in between close-up and a choker shot, but they are close-ups nonetheless. And although this particular shot isn't objective by definition since it has the camera sharing Connie's perspective and therefore has an emotional undertone, it's also unfair to call this a pure POV shot since you still have Connie's silhouette in the periphery of the frame. Alright. So how are these related to characterization, let alone anxiety? Well, a commonly known effect of a close-up shot is forced emphasis. For films that mostly use close-ups for character shots, their primary goal tends to revolve around communicating the inner state of a given character by drawing attention to their nuanced facial expressions, a central method used for direct characterization in Good Time. From a purely visual standpoint, close-ups are commonly associated with isolation. Personally, this is already a good descriptor for panic attacks as my panic vision has my eyes hyper-focused on whatever object they land on, but leaves my brain struggling to process anything in sight. Such discrepancy occurs because, for one, the surroundings are literally cut off by the zoom target, and therefore, two, the target itself is visually too overwhelming. The effect is then further amplified with the film's lean toward objective shots, which place the audience in the same space as the characters and force them to observe the chaos in, you guessed it, close-up. At the same time, as you've just seen, many of the objective shots in this film create an illusion of perspective, especially when combined with the set close-ups and the handheld camera movements. This only worsens the anxiety by adding subjectivity to the objectivity, linking the audience with the character whose perspective is best represented by the shot. Applying these ideas to the fullest, Good Time never really delves into the backstories of the different characters. Instead, the stories are told directly through the characters' visual language, and indirectly through their actions, meaning the moment Connie laid eyes on Crystal, he knew he could control her. As the cast and crew of Good Time explains in various interviews, the backstories for the different characters of the film were created and practiced with the utmost care and precision. Side characters like Corey or Crystal, who are only on screen for a few minutes, have stories of their own that go as far back as their infancy, and the sophisticated relationship between Connie and Nick was crafted pre-shoot for months by Robert Pattinson and Benny Safdie themselves, who would actually spend time with each other as their characters.
I remember there was one time where Rob kind of grabbed me to tell me to stop doing something, and we both felt like, uh-oh, you're not supposed to grab Nick.
With that, let's re-examine the scene beat by beat. For starters, Connie, just like Crystal, grew up with his grandma. We know this from the opening sequence of the film.
And she started yelling at me and pushing me and kept telling me I can't eat food.
That was your grandmother was saying that?
Yeah, and then she threw stuff at me.
He senses that Crystal has a relationship akin to his own and figures out exactly how to pull her strings. What prompts Connie to immediately take advantage of this is his spontaneity, which is revealed through the way he is shot. Nearly every shot involving Connie is zoomed in, shaky, and quick to transition, while scenes that leave him out are generally static, quiet, and therefore easier to follow. This is also how the audience can deduce early on that Connie is the one doing the most harm to Nick's mental health. Nick may be unstable, but he is able to keep his composure surprisingly well, until Connie shows up to light the fire. Nick's confused perception of the world is likely exacerbated by Connie's chaotic energy, not remedied. Yet, with every churning plot point, Connie faces problems that will solidify his character as one with vigilance and determination, which is how he keeps dodging the bullet. And the culmination of his early act, Characterization, is this very scene. His mannerisms bordering on arrogance and extreme audacity.
I was gonna make my brother something to eat. You want something?
Notice how his way of speaking has changed as well.
God bless you, God bless you.
Again, this isn't just about him being confident. It's about everything that Connie has been through, his entire history. The intent becomes evident when you look at the natural flow of their should-be bizarre conversation, or at least it is for them.
You the drug dealer?
Yeah,
Where does he live?
can't disclose that.
Where you in?
Cause it's gonna make his house hot. Can't do that to him.
What, from me?
From anybody.
While the majority of the shots in Good Time are indeed objective close-up shots, this doesn't mean they are the only techniques in this film, obviously. In fact, they might even be considered a bait because their prevalence overexposes the audience to a single type of panic and leaves them vulnerable to others. This is why my absolute favorite scene from Good Time is neither a close-up shot nor an objective shot. Before discussing the scene, let's finally take a step back and broaden our perspective, both in terms of the shot type and the film itself. Good Time is roughly divided into 8 different chapters, or 18 mini events, give or take, that are split visually by long establishing shots and audibly by One Tricks Point Never's enchanting original score. What separates the establishing shots of Good Time from other films is that they resemble police aerial footage, generating a sense of supervision and entrapment to every event that follows. And since the individual events themselves are mostly in the explained close-ups and objective shots, the suspense is kept high at all times. Paired with the switching shots is the music that quickly builds itself up to the peak of a given sequence, only to abruptly disappear and restart the process for the next event. As previously implied, these techniques are a reflection of the dire circumstances at hand and Connie's way around them. The undulating or sawtoothing music and the surveilling camera form a constant pattern of anxiety followed by a short-lived relief followed by another anxiety that pushes the audience into complete exhaustion. The only true serenity the film offers is, ironically, with Nick, who has an inner turbulence of his own when he is alone without Connie by his side. Better yet, the only two times this happens is at the beginning and the end of the film, forming a weird loop in the film structure. Everything in between the two sedated scenes are adrenaline-filled sequences featuring Connie desperately trying to help his brother the way he knows is best. It's a simple pattern of A, B, A, where after everything Connie does for his brother, Nick is simply back to where he started. The only exception to this formula is the specified scene, where we deviate from both the close-ups and the objective shots and are instead given wide POV shots. The scene starts with Connie having an argument with Ray, the criminal who Connie thought was his brother, and leaving their hideout. First, we get a POV shot of Ray looking down at Connie getting chased by the cops. Once Connie gets caught, we get a second POV shot of Connie looking up at Ray climbing out the apartment window. By using the perspective of the other character, the film is essentially distancing the audience from the events that are unfolding. However, the fate of the two characters, if anything, feels more horrifying because 1. The shots seem realistic due to its organic movements and POV quality, and 2. Well, precisely because it is distanced. Excluding this moment, there are only about 5 POV shots in Good Time. There's one at the start when Connie glances at another mentally disabled person, there's one near the second act as a transition where Connie looks at a bus plan, and there's a couple in the hospital when he peeks at the reception to see if there's anyone there. But these are short inserts that are mostly unmotivated, except maybe the first one, and are instead driven narratively.
Is that what you think you are?
The last 2 POV shots are longer, emotionally invested, and are shown from 2 different characters who never once got a real connection. Speaking of connection, aren't these perspective shots awfully similar to the establishing shots from earlier? They are wide, neutral, and liberating in presentation, but confining and controlling in character. The distant, unbiased view of the character's demise inevitably hits harder than it would have if it was a subjective view. This is a perspective shot that feels objective, an effect only achievable by having 2 characters who are indifferent to each other, a flip side of the rest of the film that are mostly objective but has a personal undertone.
Yes, please!
So, should the audience choose to immerse themselves, they will probably connect with one character in both perspectives, Connie. In this sense, both POV shots serve to depict the pinnacle of Connie's rush, the moment of realization that he is not as good a fit as he thought for his brother, that he has done nothing to truly help him. So, he finally lets go. And so does the film. Hello everyone, thank you very much as always for watching, and thank you Mubi for sponsoring today's video. Mubi is a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all around the globe. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there's always something new to discover. With Mubi, each and every film is hand-selected. It's like your own personal film festival, streaming anytime, anywhere. For instance, I got to rewatch the legendary South Korean director Park Chan-wook's The Handmaiden from Mubi recently in preparation for this video. If you've seen my other stuff, you know how much I love his works, and Mubi had this film in store for Canada, which is where I'm at. The Handmaiden has a completely different style from Good Time, but it does something similar in that it tells a lot of the story through subtlety instead of plain exposition, which adds layers to the emotional journey, and really, it's just an awesome film that I cannot recommend enough. And of course, even if you're not in Canada, Mubi always offers a wonderful selection of films for you to watch. And right now you can try Mubi free for 30 days by using my link at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. That's mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. So go check it out. And that's it for me.